The best of Money Matters. Under the Radar.
It's now time for a special Under the Radar episode with me, Chua Tian Tian, where we bring you on-the-ground reports of key business events, launches, features, or developers' days. Now, this time we're broadcasting from NRF 2025 Retail's Big Show Asia Pacific. The event is held at Marina Bay Sands Singapore from now till Thursday, and we will be bringing you 3 under-the-radar conversations during this period. So in our third conversation, we speak with one of the organizers of NRF 2025, the National Retail Federation, yes, the NRF, to talk about its role in shaping conversations in the APAC retail ecosystem. So founded over a century ago back in 1911 and headquartered in Washington, D.C., the National Retail Federation is set to be the world's largest retail trade association. It passionately advocates for people, policies, and ideas to help retail thrive, and has been a voice for each and every retailer and retail job in educating, inspiring, and communicating the impact of retail on communities and global economies. And we want to find out how this has been achieved through NRF 2025 right here in Singapore. And on top of that, we'll also dive into some key content tracks at the retail show and also what they mean for retailers. Now, joining me right here on site is Jill Dvorak, Senior Vice President of Content at National Retail Federation. Jill, welcome on board.
Thank you so much. It is so exciting to be here and to be among all of the people here at NRF APAC.
I understand you have a very packed schedule today.
We absolutely do.
Thank you so much for taking the time to come down. We've briefly talked about the role of the National Retail Federation, or NRF for short. How would you describe the role of the NRF in shaping conversations in the global ecosystem and in Singapore? What is the role of the NRF in curating the lineup of speakers and content for this year's edition of the show?
Well, it's a fantastic region, and we could not be more excited to be here. So National Retail Federation, obviously headquartered in the United States. What we have done with the partnership of Comexposium is partnered to come to this region with the highest growth opportunity, unbelievable digital innovation, digital transformation, and just the consumer base that is constantly growing and constantly looking for more from their brands. So we are here to represent not only all the technology providers, but also the retailers and what they can learn from each other. So that is really the number one thing to get out of this show, is finding partners, finding potential business opportunities, and also just connecting with fellow retailers, because chances are if you're having a challenge, they've had it. And we want to connect everybody together and ensure that they can absolutely solve these problems together.
Yeah, and Joe, I do want to start off the conversation with the trends to watch, because NRF 2025 in Singapore includes a variety of content tracks. I'm just going to pick up some of the key topics discussed at the event. They include one, targeting the next generation of shoppers, or the Gen Z shoppers, to changing consumer tastes in food and the ongoing culinary evolution in APAC. 3, you've got curating a unique retail mall experience. 4, you've got crossing cultures and borders. And last but not least, you've got the delivery revolution. Non-exhaustive list here, but talk to us as to why these topics have to be discussed right now.
Well, at the end of the day, the consumers, whether it's the consumer you have or the consumer you want, all retailers are always looking to grow and to add to their customer base. You cannot do that without listening to the Gen Z and that new customer. You know, our NRF Big Show in New York, our theme this year is the next now. So it is constantly looking at who is coming next in the pipeline and how do you satisfy that customer. So with that customer, a lot of it comes to delivery. How do they get it faster, sooner, quicker, and in a more frictionless environment? So all of those pieces together are really how we framed a lot of this content. You don't have any content without technology innovation or digital disruption. So that falls into play as well. And then food and brands and celebrities, all of those, it's entertainment. Content is entertainment now. You don't just turn on the TV and hope something good's on now. Now you curate your own shopping list. You also curate your own what you want to watch and who you want to show up on your feeds. So we have to be able to do that as retailers, and that's how we really shape who we bring onto the stage, people who are doing that and people who have demonstrated excellence in all of that.
You've given us an overview of some of the trends, but if I could try my luck for this impromptu question over here, if you were to pick up one out of the 5 trends we mentioned earlier, which stood out to you this time around?
Honestly, I think it's looking at that next generation. Who is coming in? How do they want to shop? And really, the takeaway, you can look at any research from any of the big research companies out there. They're all individuals. Shocking, right? They're all individuals. We can't make them all be one. So meeting them where they want to be. What that means is personalized landing pages, personalized products, personalized ways to shop. And all that is only done through incredible technology that powers those experiences. So leaning into that and leaning into ways to achieve that, it could be in-store, buy online, return. It's shopping anywhere and everywhere. And at the end of the day, there's not a customer out there who doesn't want that. So you can really take those learnings and make it go the other way.
Now, since you talked about technology and customization, I'll bring this question forward as a question on the AI revolution. Do you think companies are ready to utilize AI, be it in their front end or back end operations, applications? How is the NRF encouraging firms to adopt AI through platforms like the NRF 2025 and the Innovators Showcase?
It's a great question. You know, it is the number one talked about term. And in fact, I don't think you'll have a session without it talked about. But really where it can be used is twofold. One, inside the company, right? How do you make your employees' jobs more efficient, more effective? How do you lessen the tasks that are just not fun and don't really excite them? Those can be done and streamlined, of course, and then obviously you have more time for the creative, the relationship, all of the things that really can't be replicated by an AI system. Then there's the consumer facing. I think there are so many incredible retailers doing wonderful things with it. The basic first use a lot of times is chat. It's customer service chat, answering questions, but typically you don't want a canned answer, right? You want an intelligent being. You want there to be some kind of customization to your questions. So that is where you cannot just let it live on your site and leave it and forget it. The set it and forget it days are long over. Now it is the constant iteration in the learning. So it's even beyond machine learning now. It's really into agentic. And the companies who are not employing agentic on a consumer-facing basis will eventually struggle to really relate to the customer and meet all of their needs because it's one-to-one now. It's not one to many.
Is the adoption of agentic AI, is the adoption rate in the retail ecosystem to your expectations at this moment?
Honestly, it is. It is talked about a lot, but where we've seen incredible use is in-store. So the in-store associates will walk around with these incredibly smart devices. They already have them in their pocket. They're called cell phones. We all have them. And it's a way of looking, not just do you have it in stock? Where is it in the store? But it's about all of the intricate selling attributes, you know, the product description, all of the ways it can interact with another piece of equipment you might be buying. So now our sales associates in store, they are as smart as an AI tool. Well, that is incredibly welcome for the sales associates. The other benefit that retailers are seeing in real, huge waves now are seeing it on the product pages. So when you land on a site now, you're not just on the homepage and then hoping and hunting and pecking your way through the website. You're diving deep into the product page of where you came from. Maybe it's TikTok, maybe it's Instagram, but you're going much deeper into the site, and that is increasing conversion for the retailers. So there are so many ways to apply it. It is incredible. The U.S. is getting there, but what is so exciting about being here in the Asia-Pacific region is these retailers really have applied it incredibly well. So we are here also as the NRF to take those learnings back to the United States and make sure that all of retail is not only global, not only connected, but making consumers happy. Who doesn't want to feel happy when they shop? I mean, that's the best part of shopping, right?
Certainly. Jill, another trend that we want to talk about, and you have mentioned it in brief as well, as creating efficiencies and driving margins, particularly in the inflationary world that we live in right now. Now, what should companies do to survive in this expensive new world? Are intra-Asia collaborations key to unlocking efficiencies? In what ways can companies in the region do so?
It's a great question. And every country is facing something similar, right? There's a lot of thinking locally, but acting globally. So when you're thinking about a region as complex as Asia Pacific, so many things are cross-border. Just returns alone, that is a huge area of cost savings. So maybe, there's two buckets you look at to raise,
Yes.
to increase profit. You look to raise the revenue and to decrease the costs. Decreasing costs as something as simple as looking at the returns funnel. That is an absolutely huge place to save, so whether it's a resale market, listing items, refurbished, things like that. That's one place, but also looking at how many touches you have in that return flow. Reducing one touch can be multiple points in the margin. Also looking at the front end, increasing revenue, right? Adopting, whether it's, a TikTok shop that you haven't tried, going to where your customers are is the number one way to increase the revenue. So in this incredibly tight environment with every point mattering, it is finding a way to kind of break out, going where your customers are and then saving the costs on the back end. But I will say the people who came out of a similar type of environment, in a COVID environment when it was tight and hard to operate, looking at the people who invested in the most important parts of their business, that is who came out ahead.
How has this year's iteration of the NRF retail show then encouraged firms to work together and to unlock those efficiencies that you mentioned? After all, most players, if not all players, are facing the same environment, the same challenges post-COVID as well.
Yeah, one of the things we really try very hard to do is, outside of having incredible exhibitors and people who have all of this technology that they've built, is connecting the retailers live. So we have multiple retail-only events, lunches and breakfasts. We really try to get them talking.
Yeah.
So maybe it's a partnership. That would be lovely. But maybe it's just trading information on how have you dealt with this problem? How have you dealt with showing new pricing and rolling back pricing and changing that? How do you show it on your website, and how do you record it on the back end? So there are so many learnings of people going through the same thing who are not competitors, and that has been a huge unlock. You can find inspiration in looking at a fintech company sometimes of ways they've locked down in a new cyber environment. So there are ways to look broader than just retail, but on this floor you will find entertainment, retail, hospitality, restaurants, grocery, transportation. All of these are facing the same way. So number one tip of being at the show, you didn't ask yet, but I'm going to tell you anyway, is just ask people questions. What do you do? What's your number one challenge? How do you do it? And that is the unlock. Honestly, it's people.
Okay, now if you're just tuning in, we're in conversation with Jill Dvorak, Senior Vice President of Content at National Retail Federation. Speaking of asking questions, I've got more questions in line in store for you, Jill, about the industry, this one. So according to Euromonitor, retail sales in APAC are expected to increase by 24% from 2023 to 2028 to account for 57% of total retail sales growth. How far are the numbers in line with your expectations? That's one. What do they mean for retailers as they navigate a new world order, and what role will Singapore play in the bigger scheme of things?
Well, look, we're here for a lot of reasons, but number one is the growth opportunity. So I think the Euromonitor numbers are absolutely accurate. In the United States, we're seeing, post-COVID world, we're seeing anywhere from 2.7 to 3.7 increase for 2025. Last year, we saw 3.6. Just to give a relative sense, last year, 3.6, that was bringing it to $5.29 trillion. So we're seeing a very, very similar trajectory this year. That will bring it up to about $5.4 trillion. So again, not quite the same growth as the APAC market, but I think with the interconnectedness of the global world and all of the brands who want to come here and want to grow here, I think those numbers are pretty spot on. In the U.S. alone, 1 out of 4 jobs are in retail. That is 55 million jobs, and that's about 5.3 trillion impact on total GDP. So, the U.S. is a bit smaller in the growth, but I don't think there is a world that won't happen in the APAC region. I think it's primed for growth.
So you think the retail scene will have a greater role to play in APAC given the number of jobs that will be involved given the growth of the entire area?
I do. I mean, when we look at this region, you're dealing with hundreds of countries and hundreds of languages. Mm-hmm. And in the U.S., it's one country, right? It's one language, more or less. And that is just... It's unbelievable to look at the expansion opportunities here and the complexity of it. So there have been so many companies that, have saturated the U.S. market and now are looking for more growth. And what does that mean? Well, coming to this market is where so much of the opportunity is. And there are some incredible consumers here. There are so many trends coming out of this region that the U.S. is trying to capture, trying to get some of these, the hottest items coming out. It's like Christmas when you were a kid. Your mom would run to the store to try to get something and might not be successful. So the growth opportunities here and the consumer behavior here is something we are really watching closely and really excited about.
I know we've touched on this. I've mentioned in your responses here and there as well, but I do want to structure it as one question for you, because we've talked about how the NRF passionately advocates for people, policies, and ideas to help retail thrive. But how has this been achieved at NRF 2025, and how can events like the NRF foster information exchange and lead to tangible outcomes and partnerships?
It's a great question, because at the end of the day, tangible is what the retail world needs. We've always had one show in New York, right? And once a year is not enough. The consumer wants more touch points. The consumer wants more from us. So now we are announcing, obviously, a show coming in Paris in September. Mm-hmm. That will be NRF Europe. So now we will have 3 touch points from Singapore to New York to Europe that all of this community can get together and meet and talk about technology roadmaps. What does it look like? What are your consumers wanting? Do they want it 4 deliveries a day, or do they want it consolidated into one? Mm-hmm. What do consumers want, and how do we meet those needs to win in this race with them? Look, we're competing against everybody for eyes and dollars. It's not just retailers competing against each other. What we're competing out is breaking out and being a trusted brand. So the way NRF can do that is by convening and bringing together people more than once a year.
And finally, before we let you go, Jill, for those who are on site right now attending the NRF, what advice would you give them to maximize their experience, on top of asking that one question to people at the booths?
That's a great question. I think everybody should be challenged here to meet 5 new people. 5 people that not only you connect with from a LinkedIn perspective, but you will follow up with. Mm-hmm. So 5 people you ask the question of, what do you do and why do you do it best? And then maybe it's a question about, how could you potentially help me? You look around this expo floor and you'll have heard of a lot of the companies, but there are so many new ones, and there are so many incredible ones that have technology that is leapfrogging where you thought we could be. So that's number 1, 2, and 3 is all of that. 4 and 5 is meeting other brands, meeting other retailers, trying to understand what their challenges are, who are their customers, and maybe there's a potential partnership there. What are ways you've solved these issues? And just at the end of the day, getting to know another person. Mm-hmm. Now that is something AI can't replicate, and that is something that you need to do in person.
Okay, so we are going to give our audience on site a challenge. So if you've met 5 people at the NRF 2025, write that out in a LinkedIn post and also tag NRF 2025. Shall we do that?
Do it. I love it. Tag me in it, Jill Dvorak, Dvorak, and we will repost you and we will give you some love.
Thank you so much for the support. Now, thanks so much for joining us, Jill, as well. That was Jill Dvorak, Senior VP Content at National Retail Federation. Thank you so much for joining us on Money FM 89.3 in this special On The Go episode from NRF 2025.
Thank you so much. It was wonderful to be here.
Before acting on the information on Money FM, please consider if it's suitable for your own investment objectives, financial situation, and risk tolerance. To listen to more great interviews, download our podcasts at audio.sg or download the audio app. That's AWEDIO, audio at the App Store and Google Play.